science behind the power of positive thinking in your hands. Order this truly life-changing book today at www.ordainingreality.com. And while you're there, check out the Reader's Blog. That's www.ordainingreality.com.
He'll come back for me when his work is done. And I wait for you, but you would never come. Oh, if that's what you want, and that's where I'll leave it.
Okay, folks. I just woke up. I'm in my bathrobe. It's 8 o'clock in the morning. I don't even want to get dressed yet. I feel so tired. But I'm waiting to go live on the show. It's my second time on Gemjin.com. If you go to gemjin.com/mission.html, you can get a direct link there. We're talking about astral projection and lucid dreaming. And I'm probably going to have to cut this part out because this song probably has copywritten and I can't put that on my YouTube video probably. I'm hoping this girl doesn't have it. Anyway, we'll see. I'll just make a dispute. I usually dispute all the songs they say are copywritten. I say they have given permission to Gemjin, obviously. And I was given permission from Gemjin, so we're all in the clear. Anyway, we'll find out here soon.
When I found you, I feel less alone. When you slammed the door in my face, I felt the wood sound through my bones. But the one thing you showed me is we believe what we want to see. Oh, and lately the adult steps.
It's a beautiful overcast, not overclass. I'm overclass. I'm a little too classy in a pink, got sleep in my eyes probably. I'm drinking some herbal tea.
I'm a 25-year-old one-night stand standing in the front stairs. The best child, a damn good mother, and two half sisters. I have learned to turn inside out just to find a safe space. So here's some advice: use protection and have a nice day.
Have a nice day. They should have been playing my song. I sent them my songs and they said I didn't send them my songs. Anyway. I'm gonna get my pillow out here and put my feet up. Get a little comfortable. Not even a Superman. Not even a man. I'm not a Superman or a man. I'm just a freaking boy dressed like a man. Are you a man or are you a mouse? That's what I always say.
We're not here to judge. I am a Christian. I pray to God. I believe that. But I'm not going to say that's the only way to heaven, because I would be betraying myself to say that, because that's not what I believe.
Jupiter.
Yes, I'm going to talk a little bit about that. And I'm also going to talk about something that I got some questions on about, another force in the universe. And so my opening monologue, which is usually about 7 or 8 minutes, will probably be more like about 8 or 9 minutes. I'll just cover some other stuff faster and cover those two topics, and then I'll bring Tim right in, and of course I'll introduce Tim, and then we'll go from there.
Great. Tim, can you hear us? Okay?
Rock and roll. I can hear you.
Hi Tim, how are you?
Excellent.
Good. So I'm going to do an opening monologue, and I'm going to cover a couple of scientific things. One, actually two kind of breaking things. One of which I've had questions from, from people on my blog about that I'm just going to get to. And another was just about, Jupiter. That's just kind of new news, and it's kind of fascinating and interesting. We'll see what happens with that. And then, so I normally do about a 7 or 8 minute opening monologue, and I'll make this about, this might make it into 10. I'll shorten other parts of it.
Cool. Perfect.
And then I'll introduce you. And and listen to it. You may have some comments on some part of it, but then we'll get right to your stuff anyway.
Cool.
And so I'm ready anytime you want to cue in the music, Lucy. Sorry about being late here.
Okay, you guys are Slice of life.
Well, good evening, folks. Good morning or good afternoon, depending on where in this wide world of internet radio you are tuned into and listening to the Ordain Reality Show here on Gemjin Radio. I am your host, Dr. Joe Donlin, and by the way, I am calling in, or I am online here, if you will, in the Boston area, so that's Eastern Standard Time. So for me, it's 7 o'clock. So maybe actually 7:06. We'll start a little bit late tonight, and I do apologize for that. But we are here, and we have an interesting show tonight with a fabulous guest on, Tim Janakos. As I do on every opening show, I just talk a little bit about what the program you're listening to. It's a talk radio show. We get into a lot of areas of, science, if you would, but a lot of it is getting into the realm of metaphysics. But as common listeners to the show and frequent listeners to the show, I have a background in both physics and in metaphysics, so we get into some of the topics that kind of cross over. And, one of the things that I've been talking a lot about within the realm, the crossover, if you will, between physics and metaphysics is, the fact that there seems to be something more than what is seen, heard, felt, tasted, and the five senses. And we're seeing more and more evidence of that. And as a result of that, I had several different conversations and several different shows that I talked a lot about that particular topic, and they're here on archive, and I bring this up again. But I did have a couple of questions, or a couple of inquiries, if you will, on my website about a fifth force. And I wanted to just address that because that's not kind of what I'm talking about. But basically, but it is kind of important. And so what's been claimed really is an article that was presented on a physics paper. I got the paper and I kind of looked at it. Essentially, it's kind of contradicting, if you would, something in the standard model. And I talk a lot about the standard model. And the standard model, and we're talking now within the discipline of physics, the standard model, it's easy to understand. It's just a collection of theories that collectively make it up, almost like a pie chart, different models fitting into different pieces of it, that describe the smallest experimentally observed particles of matter and the interactions between energy and matter. And essentially, what they describe is the four forces of nature, which of course are gravity and electromagnetism and the weak force and the strong force. And so what has seemed to be coming up in certain experiments as we get better and better with these, call them atom smashers, these machines, these cyclotrons that speed matter and look at the collisions, after it, that there seems to be a fifth force, or at least something that they can't explain any other way. And and it's really interesting because the experiments do seem to support that. These measurements have survived peer review, and a lot of this was published a few months ago, and more experiments have been going on, and very recently even something at UC Irvine, University of California, Irvine, where my brother actually taught. And so basically the body of work has been really looked at almost over the last century, and it's been fueled by things like dark energy and dark matter, and maybe a lot of you have heard about it. But anyway, so it comes up with a whole new theoretical framework, and it's actually originated with this a bunch of scientists in Hungary, and now they're being kind of looked at again within the United States to see. So basically, there's been a lot of thought about this fifth force, and I'm addressing it because I've had some questions. It isn't anything that I had talked about, and in fact, to be honest with you, I do not. I am thinking that they're going to debunk this. Okay, I don't think there is another force out there beyond the four fundamental forces, as I mentioned: gravity, electromagnetism, the weak force, and the strong force. And and I describe them in my books, at a high level, so it's very intelligible for somebody without a deep physics background to understand them. And in fact, this wouldn't be an explanation in my mind to explain dark matter and dark energy. I've got a different theory on that. But of course, I, as everybody else, or everybody in the field, do research on this. I reviewed this material, and of course, I'm always learning as well. So I'm not saying there's an impossibility that there's not a fifth force, but it would actually contradict a lot of the things that I subscribe to and believe are true. So I am suspecting that they're not going to find that. But I wanted to differentiate that. That's not, that's not like a fifth dimension, which would be the realm of of metaphysics. That's a fifth force, and it is a whole different thing. And they talk about these force carriers as these so-called dark photons, and it gets into a lot of, complicated math and so forth. But, I'm very impressed with the research done on it. I'm certainly open-minded about it, but I would say that we're not going to find anything there, and I think we're going to move on from this. So that's my prediction, and based on a lot of other material that I subscribe to. So anyway, so that's where we are with that, and of course there's been a lot of new news about the scientific probe that called Juno that's been orbiting. It finally reached now the planet Jupiter, which is kind of interesting, and I find that to be, that's real stuff, and I find that to be very fascinating. But at any rate, it is kind of interesting because Jupiter is a rather amazing planet. It is not like anything else in our solar system. In fact, it is so big that if it were much bigger, it would start to shrink in size due to gravitational pull on itself. It's about, in volume-wise, it's about 1,300 times as big as the planet Earth. And so it means you could put like 1,300 planet Earths in it. And there's obviously a lot of planets orbiting the sun, but Jupiter is really, kind of its own animal, if you will, because it's 2.5 times bigger than all the other planets combined, and it all fit easily inside Jupiter, and it's kind of gaseous. So it's interesting in that regard, and also it has, tremendous amounts of, heat, and gravity, and also radiation. I know that the probe is going to be, even as far away as it is going to be subjected to, what would be equal to getting 100 million dental X-rays. So they have that quite shielded and so forth and so on. And what they expect to find. What's interesting about this, the probe is up there to find certain things, and one of them is maybe, why this anomaly planet exists and what its constituency is and so forth and so on. But also things like, just and how it was formed, because that will help us understand how planets are formed and so forth and so on. So, I find this rather interesting, and we just got there, so there'll be more and more, obviously, reports about this. And, as breaking news comes along, we'll let you know about that, but it is exciting. So tonight, as I mentioned, we have a guest on who's been on the show before, and I'm pleased to say I'm joined tonight by Tim Janakos, and Tim is, and I guess I as well, but he is going to talk a lot about healing and music and books and so forth, and then also we're going to have the phone lines open for Tim to take some calls on healing, so folks just continue to call in on the chat line or call in directly on a phone line, and as a way of introduction, Tim is a lifelong student of Buddhism, and is a healer. He works with the body code, which is one specific discipline, if you would, the emotion code, also quantum touch, and three-dimensional therapy, access consciousness, and I probably left a few other unnamed healing modalities, and I probably left some stuff out. And so we're going to discuss those, and then also perhaps why it's important to have a number of different techniques and perspectives to help folks, because just as there are different specialties within medicine, then there are within the metaphysics, if you would, the more holistic aspect of healing. So and beyond, and perhaps really aside from all of that, Tim is also is a visionary. He's a visionary author, and he's a songwriter, originally from Southern California, and he's now living in Northern Japan. And he's written at least 4 books that I know of, and he's currently working on, I think, his 4th CD. And interesting background, that Tim will share. I think he started 5 or 6 years ago. I know he had a number of different illnesses, and he came upon energy healing, and his story there, I think, is a good lead-in. So Tim, I probably left some stuff out of that. I'm sure I left some stuff out of that, but I think it's more important for the folks to start to hear from you. And how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing excellent. It is 8 o'clock in the morning in Japan, and I woke up at 4 o'clock because every time I do an interview, my body starts the call way early. And so I had to go on the computer and tell everyone we were going live in about 3 hours, and then I went back to sleep, and then I couldn't wake up. So I'm just kind of waking up, but I'm good to go.
Okay, good. Well, good morning, Tim. I'll say to you, and good evening for a lot of the folks listening. But we have some that it is morning and early afternoon and so forth. So Tim, I know, as a way of introduction, I think it's kind of fascinating. Your own personal story, how you get into a lot of this, because you're a fairly young guy and now quite healthy, but wasn't always that way. And I think there's a lot of people's experience that the field that they get into was kind of driven that way by personal requirements and personal needs, and I think that probably is very much the case in your case as well.
Yes, and Einstein said once you forget everything you learned in school is when you start to actually learn about wisdom. So I had to abandon most of my so-called theories and my algorithmic programming from 10 years of college and then 1 year or 4 years of another university, and all my 12 years of public schooling in the U.S., I had to let go of all that programming to finally get to the point where I can understand true wisdom, which is what Einstein talks about. And there truly is a fifth force. And you're probably going to laugh when I tell you what it is. You've probably seen the movie Star Wars, and the force in Star Wars is actually the fifth force. And the fifth force is consciousness. And it goes against all laws of physics. So if you look at the laws of physics, they're based on the HEPADs, which are handicaps, entropies, atrophies, paralyses, and destructions. But consciousness works against all of those forces. So scientists cannot explain consciousness, so they try to rule it out of all equations, because consciousness goes against every theory of science that there is, because they can't explain it. So how does a body regrow something that it damaged? Like if we get a computer and we throw it down the stairs and it breaks, we can't get the computer to regrow back, but a body can regrow back really quickly, and they can't explain how that is possible in science. So they have a lot of theories, but they just really can't explain it. So what it is the fifth force. It is consciousness. And in Buddhism, I grew up studying Buddhism. They call it Myoho. Myoho means the mystic law, or the law of the lotus blossom, Myoho Renge Kyo. And this lotus blossom, it blooms in a muddy swamp, which is kind of analogous to our society now with all the problems we have. And this muddy, the story in the sutras is the muddier the swamp, the more beautiful the lotus blossom. So the worse it gets in the world and the worse it gets in the environment is actually when people start blooming into beautiful lotus blossoms. They start becoming fully conscious. And so far, most of the people on the planet are sleepwalkers, which is what I actually wanted to talk about mostly on the call is lucid dreaming and astral projection, which I sent 4 or 5 audios to Lucy, and she said we might play one of the audios if that's queued up. I don't know.
Sure, no, great. Yeah, if we can cue that up, we'll definitely play that.
Yeah.
And by the way, now that I answered that, I just want to clarify something. That I'm part of a group of scientists that actually are trying to tie in metaphysics with physics. And consciousness, by the way, we're probably saying the same thing, only calling it the fifth dimension rather than the fifth force. And it is this all-connecting, all-powerful, interconnecting morphic field that is there. So I think we are saying the same thing. And I really was talking about a specific hard force that the thinking is inside certain atoms that have a certain electron weight, and that's the thing that I'm thinking is going to be proven to be elusive, and that isn't the case. But I'm definitely on board with consciousness being the most important and powerful force or dimension, if you would, in this universe. In fact, we did a whole series on it that seems to have an ability even to see things and know things before they even happen in real time among the other senses, if you will. But
yeah, so I think last time I was on, I discussed a little bit David Wilcock's The Source Field Investigations, which is a New York Times best-selling science book, which is rare. And he takes a lot of research on thoughts, and like they had little electrodes put onto a plant, and the scientist was trying to figure out how he could make the plant respond a certain way. I don't know how he was doing it, but they were judging the energy off the plant. And so he thought, okay, what I'll do is I'll burn the leaf of the plant. And as soon as he had the thought, or even was almost going to have the thought, he noticed this big spike in the energy of the plant. So when he thought I was going to burn the leaf of the plant right away knew it was going to be affected. So it's sensory, whatever he was measuring. I can't remember exactly because I'm not good at all the terminology of.
Yeah, he actually had was effectively almost like a lie detectors type of equipment hooked up. When there's actually a Philadelphian plant is what it was, and I talk about that, by the way, extensively in my books, that particular experiment.
Yeah.
But interesting.
And I think I spoke also about William Tiller, which is Dr. William Tiller is the professor emeritus at Stanford University of Physics, and he has been doing international and national studies on the speed of thought, and he calculates the speed of thought at the speed of light to the 8th power, which would be the speed of light times 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 the speed, which is faster than anything that most scientists think that is possible. It's, the speed of light is what we think, based on this theory of relativity, must be the ultimate limit of speed. But he is proving that the speed of thought is that to the 8th power, which is pretty phenomenal. Even if it was to the 2nd power, it would be pretty phenomenal.
Exactly. And by the way, we're coming up with similar speeds for the speed of gravity. So,
wow.
And we're actually seeing actual proof that the speed of gravity propagates at almost infinite speed, as you said, orders and orders and orders of magnitude faster than the speed of light. And by the way, just on that particular topic, what we are also discovering is once the genie was out of the bottle on what we call action at a distance, and that's a premise within quantum mechanics. And once we were into action at a distance, which means that one object or portion of an object, whatever, can affect another object or portion of an object, independent of time and independent of distance, and in the absence of any known connection. That's what they call action at a distance, which, by the way, Einstein didn't believe in. He called it spooky action at a distance. Well, by definition, any effect of action at a distance, and this is my latest book, I talk about this, is occurring in zero time. So we are now already not just breaking Einstein's, speed limit, if you would. We're breaking it with infinity. We're not breaking it with 2 times or 5 times or 8 times or 8 orders of magnitude. We're breaking it with infinity. So it's kind of an interesting breakthrough that now science has to acknowledge is the case. So just to kind of punctuate the point, we definitely have that, and we think it is consciousness, and that's the speed of thought as well.
Yeah. So you just said the lyrics to one of my songs. One of my songs, the lyrics goes, "Infinity is all there ever is," because actually, so my radio show before was called From Time Without Beginning, and the reason I called it From Time Without Beginning is because the only religion known to man that doesn't have a beginning is Buddhism. Buddhism says nothing ever started, nothing ever finishes. It's all cyclical, which is bringing me back to David Wilcox again. His book after the source fields investigation was The Synchronicity Keys, which he talks about how throughout history it seems like the same people have been reincarnating over and over, or the historians have been lying and recreating the same guy over and over. But he's showing that all these people that went through history had either reincarnated and done the exact same thing, or the historians are just making up stories based on past stories, which I believe to be hard to imagine because they've done it so many times. So, and they're doing the exact same thing they did in each life. So either they're reincarnating, or they're picking up the morphic field of the person, or they're channeling the person, which is kind of my next book is actually tentatively titled channeling Sir Francis Bacon, which we might get into at the end of the call if we have time. But anyway, it's kind of a long subject to get into that. But I want to get into, if we could, the lucid dreaming and astral projection, because that's what recently I've been getting a lot more into. I started as a little kid doing lucid dreaming, and I didn't know what I was doing at first. And I've now learned how to take my lucid dreaming and my astral projection work into my healing work, and starting to have a little success with that, which is amazing, because a lot of healing modalities that I've worked with, a lot of them think dreams are just kind of like a bunch of trash that's your subconscious mind is trying to work out and stuff like that. But if you can actually, in the dream realm, take over the dreams. And what you realize after you do that is you realize that actually the waking life is actually another set of dreams which could actually be manipulated too with consciousness.
Yeah. Well, first of all, that subject matter would fit beautifully in the in the show. So let's get into that, and let's start with an explanation of what you mean by lucid dreaming, because some folks out there might not understand what we mean by lucid dreaming.
Okay.
And let's start with that.
So my definitions are when you're in a dream and you become conscious that you're in a dream. Mm-hmm. That is my definition of lucid dreaming.
And that is the definition, so
okay.
That's perfect.
And astral projection to me is when you actually, just like lucid dreaming, you can actually go into a lucid dreaming phase while you're doing a meditation, which we're going to try to do on the call, because I have a meditation that I sent her, 4 different meditations. A lot of people on the meditation can't leave their body and go into a lucid dream state. But some people, when they do, they go into what's called astral projection. And the difference between the lucid dream state and the astral projection is the astral projection is actually in real time. So, but that's another theory that I'm going up against, because time, I believe actually, I'm learning lately, might not be a real reality, which we'll get into later if we talk about quantum jumping and we talk about time travel and other things like that, which to me relate to lucid dreaming too. But it takes a while to get into that. So,
well, just on that point, science is beginning to prove experimentally that what we talk about linear time applies to the physical world, if you would. It applies to the world of physics. It doesn't apply to metaphysics, and in fact, it doesn't apply to consciousness. So consciousness becomes aware of events before physical events occur in what they call linear time, and we're being able to see this with experiments. So we're able to see this in laboratory experiments that's true. So what you're talking about, time not existing as a finite thing, of now, of before, now, and in the future, we're beginning to see that as physicists, which is extremely interesting.
yes.
And really, really quite a breakthrough.
So I did talk briefly on the last talk about the guy in Florida who's kind of been kind of ostracized, and I can't remember his name now. The guy I was talking about, what was it? The hadronic mechanics, and his name is Dr. Santilli. That's his name. We were talking about the center of the hadron. He believes to be a super dense medium that is hypertemporal and hyperlocal. And what I believe that center of the hadron is consciousness. So everything is fully conscious. The table's fully conscious. The earth is fully conscious. The wind is fully conscious. Everything that is one of the threefold reality, which we'll get into. That's a Buddhist concept that scientists aren't yet fully aware of. Some are, though. So it's one of the folds of reality is the physical reality. The other fold of reality is the nature of reality, or the thoughts, feelings, emotions, memories, and stuff like that. The other fold of reality is the entity of reality. The entity of reality is the combination of both the physical reality and the spiritual reality, if you will. So that's from Buddhism, the threefold world that we live in. But science is starting to prove that with some of the things you're talking about with consciousness. So this guy Santilli, when he says that the center of the hadron is hypertemporal and hyperlocal, which means it's everywhere and every when, what you said about consciousness being able to see the future before physical reality shows it is basically because consciousness is hypertemporal and hyperlocal. So as a conscious being, we are perceiving, if there were a time, if there really is a such thing as time, which I don't yet fully believe, because all beliefs are limitations, so I don't really choose to have beliefs. I have awarenesses, and my awarenesses is directing me towards the idea that time bleeds, which means the past, present, and future are actually all contained within the nanosecond of all waking moments. And if that is true, then and consciousness is like local and hypertemporal, which means it can be everywhere and everyone all at the same time, then we have the ability to go back in time, forward in time consciously at will if we become fully conscious, which is the goal of all religion. Well, it should be the goal of all religions to become fully conscious. At least it's the goal of Buddhism.
Mm-hmm.
And the goal of science is to become hopefully fully conscious, if that is, I hope, at least the direction that science is going. It seems to be going that way.
It definitely is heading that way. Tim, we're actually up against our first break.
Okay.
And so now it's coming up now. It's probably a good place to break it. And we're going to get into, lucid dreaming and astral projections, which are very interesting because they have been believed for more than 7,000 years. I actually did my master's thesis on the metaphysics of dreaming. And it's just amazing how many years that civilization has believed in something. And then science kind of, almost relegated it to that of nothing more than, imagination and not being real and so forth and so on. And now we've come full cycle, just as we have on so many other things. So we're going to get into that topic, folks, which is obviously very interesting and very useful because this gives you this gateway, if you would, to get into the dimension of the metaphysics. But for the moment, we're going to take a short break. And by the way, we'll also queue up some of what Tim had sent into the studio as well, maybe in the latter part of this next segment. We'll make that kind of flow into the conversation as well. But folks, for the time being, stay tuned, and we're going to play a couple of commercials, and we will be back in about 2 minutes. So stay tuned.
Harness the power of positive thinking, ordaining reality.
Joe.
Okay, now Lucy, do we have that all queued up? I didn't want to put you on, but I'm assuming you can easily queue that up, and I didn't know what particular thing you had would maybe fit into the conversation of lucid dreaming.
OrdainingReality.com. And while you're there, check
Can you
out
hear the
Reader's
commercial
Blog.
that's playing?
That's
Yeah, you can hear the commercial, right? Yeah. So, and Tim, maybe you know what you sent in.
Yeah, I gave her 4 audios. Probably the shortest one is 30 minutes. So they're long audios, but they're like hypnosis, but we listen to them and we go into a lucid dream state if we get hypnotized. But if we don't get hypnotized, we at least get a very good healing because it takes us into a deep theta or even beyond theta state.
I mean, do you have one that you think would be appropriate for maybe the last segment to play that whole?
Yes.
Just to play it.
Can you just look at the time on each one? What's the? I think it's number 2 or number 3 is the shortest one.
I don't have those. Where did you send them?
Same place I always send all my stuff that you say you don't get. Let's see. I sent it through your let's see. They're right there on your. They say sent. All 3 say sent.
Are they on the Skype?
On your Skype, yes, it says sent. Probably the second one says 27.4 megabytes. That's probably the shortest one. The other 2 show 40 megabytes, so that's probably longer.
I don't see them. Joe, do you see them?
No.
Yeah, shoot them on in there again.
Okay, well they're showing on Lucy Diamond's Skype, right? I'm seeing them there. This message has this one says this one has been removed. Okay, same place I sent all my stuff that you didn't get. Okay, so I've sent all my audio to all my 3 CDs. Okay, so I'm gonna send them one more time on your Skype.
Why don't you just send the one that?
Yeah, just send the one that you want me to play.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just
Then we don't get confused.
Okay.
More time.
Okay, let's do that. Okay, let me find it now.
okay, I've got just about a minute here.
Okay.
When
whenever he does send it, you'll see it too. So.
Yeah, now I'm trying to find it again because okay, it's in documents.
Can I search online? Or?
Yeah, it's on your messages. If you look up, go up your message screen. It shows right there. It says sent. Three audios.
Oh, how long ago would it have been?
The day you asked me for them. About a week or two ago.
Okay, hold on.
I'm trying to find them too. Hold on, let me see if I can find them. I just have so many things on my computer and my new Windows.
Okay, there you go, Joe.
And we're back, and of course, you're listening to Ordain Your Reality and your host, Dr. Joe Donlan. And of course, I'm here tonight with Tim Janakos, and we've been talking in the first segment of the show, well, a little bit about healing and different healing modalities, but we're going to get into dreaming and astral projection in dreaming and lucid dreaming, which is all part of this, and it is an entrance, if you would, into the whole realm of the metaphysics. And one of the reasons at least I contend this is so, is that it opens up right hemisphere, which is really architecturally designed to enter into this realm. But normally speaking, with every day-to-day activities, it is under the control, if you would, of the left hemisphere. That's why, by the way, and that's why, by the way, that meditation works so well to get you in touch with, outside, if you would, of your own body and the senses. But anyway, so Tim, we talked a little bit about what is lucid dreaming, which is effectively that time when you're having a dream and you're very aware that you are dreaming. And I have this an awful lot, and I've talked to several people, and I think it's a very common thing that it's a little scary sometimes, because you say, I can do anything. I jump off a building, I can do this and do that. And sometimes you say, oh my goodness, I sure hope I am dreaming when these things happen. But so I know this is also a way to get into astral projections as well. So, okay, so and the studio, by the way, has another an audio that we're going to play on the third segment, Tim, that we did get that, so we're going to play that. But we're going to be talking a little bit about astral projections on this session. So, what is your own experience there, and what kind of recommendations, Tim, do you have for folks to tap into this? Okay,
there's a really good free book online. It's called The Phase. T-H-E, second word phase, P-H-A-S-E. The Phase is a book that's about probably 600 or 700 pages, free PDF book online by the School of Out-of-Body Experience, or OB Institute. The OB Institute has been started in Russia, but it's all over the world now. So they do classes all over the world, and they have about 3 or 4 books actually, but that's the longest book, The Phase. And it's the great thing about the book, The Phase, is that once you learn that you're becoming lucid in your dream, you can learn how to control it, which is what I never was able to do until I read that book. And now I'm even going beyond that book into other ways of using it to heal people and do other things. So what you want to do is, if you ever think you're dreaming, the first way to do it is either to clasp your nose, which I'm going to do right now. So you hold your nose, you try to breathe, and you can't breathe. But in the dream world, when you do that, you'll be able to breathe right through your clasped fingers, which you'll know that's impossible to do. So for me, that's always the first sign that I'm dreaming.
Okay, so in other words, you're in this lucid dream, and some people would want to pinch themselves, but in your particular case, what you do is to test that you're actually in it?
Yes, you hold your nose shut and you breathe through your fingers.
I see. Interesting.
So if anyone tries to do that now who's listening in, you hold your nose, you can't breathe, right?
Right.
But when you do it in the dream state, you're going to know this is not regular reality, or something is
Sure.
totally changed about the laws of physics. So once you realize that, you have to know how to deepen the phase. And so they call the phase all out-of-body experiences. So they call out-of-body experiences lucid dreaming or astral projection. They lump it all into one thing called the phase, or the phase state consciousness. I don't really like that definition because it assumes that all of them are the same, and I don't really assume that all of them are the same, because when you astral project, you're able to actually see things that are really happening right now. So once again, going back to the book by David Wilcox, he shows studies where they took people in the Pentagon and they were able to put them in a meditative state and have them go into another room and take out classified papers and read them and bring them back. And they can't physically do that, otherwise people would see them and kill them. So they did it in the dream state, and they came back and they told the people about what classified files they read. And they said, how can you do that? You have no access to that room. He says that's what's possible in the astral projection state. So that's when the Pentagon had to take astral projection seriously. So if you are astral projecting, if it's raining outside when you go to sleep, it should be raining in the astral projection state. If it's night when you go into your astral projection, you should go outside, it should be night. Now what happens when you go into the astral projection state is sometimes you will go outside, it'll be night, it'll be raining, but you'll see something that used to be in the same location where your house was thousands of years ago. And that's because time bleeds. So anyone who thinks they look at a person and they see them shapeshift is only because they're seeing time bleeding. So if you look at a person's face and they're all of a sudden start shape-shifting into something else, it's because you've had some kind of energetic, either you're having an energetic connection with their past lives, or you're able to see them in all the different phases they've been in through all time, which is why they look like they're shape-shifting, because they were creatures, or they were Roman emperors, or they were, whatever. You're going to see those in the people, and that's why people say they're shape-shifting. And they're not. You're just noticing that time bleeds, and the time bleeds more in certain areas than it bleeds in other areas. So you can walk down the street in some areas and you can see things and you can say, wait a second, did I just see a guy walk by in a costume? And the other person will say, no, I didn't see a guy walking by in a costume. So either you're hallucinating or you're seeing the time bleeding, and most people are realizing that time is bleeding because it's not a linear program. So there is no such thing as really past, present, and future if you become fully conscious, because you're hyperlocal or hypertemporal, which means you transcend both time and space. So that's the difference between the astral projection and the lucid dream. It happens in what some people call real time, but I wouldn't call it real time because time isn't real. So time is a creation, which we need to talk about. The laws of physics are the immutable laws of physics, but in consciousness there's what's called the mutable laws of consciousness. And the mutable laws of consciousness are where you can change the laws of physics. So the laws of physics are based on causal reality, which is based on algorithms. And when you become fully conscious, you become an algorithm interrupt, which fucks with the laws of physics, or transcends the laws of physics and stops the laws of physics, or speeds up the laws of physics, or transmutes the laws of physics, or transmorphs, transmorphification. It transmogrifies the laws of physics.
Mm-hmm.
And what's the other one? We're getting into the 9 trannies, which in Buddhism is called. So in Access Consciousness, which is one of the many healing modalities, is about becoming fully conscious. They talk about 9 trannies, which are these magical abilities we have if we become fully conscious. But in Buddhism, they call them the supernatural powers of the thus come one, which is anyone who becomes fully conscious is a thus come one, because you come out of the reality that people call reality, which is actually sleepwalking, and you become awake. And the Buddha is called the awakened one because he actually was the only one at the time who was awake. And so once you learn how to master your lucid dream state, you'll realize that the waking state that you're in is actually sleepwalking. So the reason why the laws of physics work in the sleepwalking state is because the laws of physics are the immutable laws of physics. They can't be changed in the sleepwalking state. But once you become awake, which is a Buddha or enlightened being, which everyone is, but they're sleepwalking, and you master the lucid dream phase and the astral projection phase, and you master the waking phase, which is actually sleepwalking, you'll realize that the laws of physics no longer fully apply because you become an algorithm interrupt, which all the laws of physics are based on algorithm, and all algorithms can only be probabilities, not possibilities. So all probabilities is based on what's happened before, and as we learn throughout history always can become something beyond anything we ever thought was possible. No matter what it is, we thought we couldn't fly. People thought it was crazy that we can fly. Now we fly all around the world. We think it's, and we saw Star Trek back in the 80s and in the 70s, and they had this phone thing that didn't have a line, and people were like, that's crazy. That's science fiction. And now we have them all over the place, and we just think it's normal reality because the laws of consciousness transcend all the laws of physics. So all the laws of physics, if you become an algorithm interrupt, which is basically a fully awakened person, you step out of the dream, which is the sleepwalking state that most people are in. Because when you're in the sleepwalking state of normal waking reality, you are controlled by algorithms. You are controlled by only what's ever been happened in the past, not what could happen in the future. But when you become fully conscious, you become a time traveler, or you become a hyper-dimensional being, which is hyper-local and hyper-temporal, and it allows you to step out of the laws of physics. So that's kind of giving you everything in a nutshell, why you want to learn lucid dreaming and why you want to learn to become conscious. But anyway, that was a big mouthful. Whoops. Did I get...
Sorry, the idea, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. The idea that time is an illusion has been presented actually by a number of physicists. I have an entire chapter dedicated to that and explain within quantum mechanics that we prove that time is an illusion. And there's many books out there. I actually have a colleague that wrote, Julian Barber, English from London. He wrote The End of Time, and he kind of gets into that. He makes the argument that, the mainstream laws of physics support the notion that, observations create the illusion that there's a flow of time. There's, according to him, and I have my own theory on that, a slightly different variation of it, that it's really kind of almost a trick that fools us into thinking that time is real.
Yeah.
It really is. It's really a man-made invention. It's not real. And by the way, we just very quickly, and I get into a whole chapter on this, but the idea that we know, without a doubt, within quantum mechanics, that time, by definition, is different for every living creature. So if it's different for every living creature, it cannot independently exist. That's just a syllogism. You can't have it. It can't be different for every living creature and then independently exist. And so that if it is, in fact, Einstein was one of the first ones to kind of discover this, even though he didn't realize he was discovering it when he had come up with some of his own ideas, especially that of a photon, when he said that the photon is traveling at the maximum speed limit of the universe, if you would. But interesting enough, at photon travel, the photon doesn't age and there is no time. So he's actually contradicting the fact that there's a present, a past, and a future, because to a photon, it can get from one end of the universe without incurring any of its own time. And he didn't really realize this from his equations, and it was later just kind of understood when people such as I went back in and looked at a lot of what he had written about. But anyway, but just to kind of punctuate that point, we are beginning to understand as physicists that time is, in fact, an illusion. It's almost like quantum trickery, if you would.
Yeah.
And by the way, I just got a note from the studio that the shortest file is about 29 minutes. So what we're going to do is we're going to play. That's an appropriate file to play. So we're going to play that on the last segment of the show. So we're going to take our break at about in about 5 or 7 minutes, and then
Cool.
play that last segment. And
Cool.
we'll run right up until 8:30 on that, Tim. That
Perfect.
makes sense. So, as you were saying, this, when you're into lucid dreaming, it actually opens up, if you will, a portal for us to get into other things. So, kind of, from your perspective, give us another insight into that, Tim, from your experience.
Okay, so what I've been able to do in the lucid dreaming state is dive through the ground, which is a deepening phase, or it deepens the phase state. So if you're ever in a dream and you don't have good vision, which is what happens because your body or your etheric body runs out of etheric energy, you have to do a deepening thing. So you can rub your hands together as one way to deepen, and you can look at them while you're rubbing them together, or you can focus on your hands, stare at them real close, and they'll disappear, which will deepen the phase. Or you can go up to a wall or anything in the room, and you can start palpating it, which means rubbing it and feeling it as best you can. You can lick it. You can do anything you want to anything. The more tactile stimulation you can do in the phase state, the longer you can maintain the phase state, and you can create windows into anything. You can dive through mirrors, you can dive through windows, you can dive through houses, you can fly in the air, you can just close your eyes while you're flying in the air, and you can tell yourself where you want to go in time. I want to go to Egypt at the time the first pyramid was built, and you can do a dive bomb, and when you land, you'll land there if you get enough etheric energy. I haven't been able to do it yet because I usually wake up when I do the dive bomb. But you have to do a lot of deepening so you collect what's called etheric energy, whether it's really etheric energy or not, and whether you really have etheric body or not. It's all up to interpretation. But the more I get into what they call etheric energy and what they call the etheric phase and what they call the etheric body, the more I realize that these things that they use, these terminology that they used back in many years ago in ancient traditions, are actually what science is starting to catch up with, are actually really true. So we do have an etheric body. We do have etheric energy, which is the energy that body is maintained by. And if you run out of etheric energy, you're going to wake up again, which is what most people do. Once they become consciously awake in the dream, they wake up because they don't have enough etheric energy. So you have to right away do deepening techniques, touch everything. You have to dive through the ground, or you have to rub your hands together. You have to look up something really close and check out the fine details. All those things will deepen the phase state, and then you can get more etheric energy, and you can prolong the phase, and you can do a lot of amazing things. So what I've started to do is visit my healing clients, because I have healing clients all over the world. And when you visit them in the astral projection state or the lucid dream state, you can do what a lot of people do in the waking state, which I don't yet know how to do. Did I drop off? Because I keep hearing messages coming back and forth. Do you guys hear me? Okay. I don't know what happened there.
Yeah, you're fine.
Oh, I'm fine. Okay. Because I kept hearing messages. Maybe you guys were checking out on me. So, yeah, I'm able to visit my clients and do healing on them, which for some people they can do it in the waking state. They can do what's called, now I forget what it's, psychic surgery. But in the dream state, you can stick your hand in your body. If you have a bad heart, you can massage your heart. You can take it out. You can try to fix it. You can do all that stuff. But the cool thing is it doesn't affect your physical body until you wake up again. And so everything you do in the dream state with your astral body or your etheric body, it downloads into your physical body once you wake up. So
Very interesting.
So you can have sex with which is what I used to do all the time. You can have sex with everybody in the lucid dream state because everyone says yes, and no one gets pregnant, which is really cool. And and my wife says it's not cheating, which is cool. So if you have any desires to have sex with people in the lucid dream, that's fun. But I used to do that, and then one of my friends said, you have to, this is a chance for you to become more conscious in your dream state. Why don't you use it for learning? Why don't you find someone in your dream state and ask them to teach you something? So the first time I did that, I was going up an escalator, and there was a guy coming down the opposite way on the escalator, and I looked at him, and he looked at me, and he turned away, and I said, wait, stop, you have to teach me something. So I ran down the escalator the opposite way, and I caught up with him, and I said, wait, this is my dream, but I needed someone to teach me something. So he took off his head and he threw it. So it took me a long time to understand what he was trying to teach me. And what he was trying to teach me is that the cognitive mind is actually, and this is, I'll get to some of the authors who talk about this too, the cognitive mind is an implant or a projected reality that isn't really your consciousness. Your consciousness is the seat of the soul, which is more in the thymus or heart area. So the consciousness is actually a linear program implant which you can transcend by becoming fully conscious. So in Buddhism they say master your mind or your mind will master you. Because the mind is basically runs on the projections, expectations, judgments, conclusions of all the causal reality, which is all the implanted and impelled points of view of all the people who have ever lived. And you think that's your thoughts, but it's not. It's most of the thoughts you have all day and all the feelings and the emotions you have are just implanted and impelled point of views based on all the people's realities that they're making real, which are not real.
They came before you.
Yeah, that came before you. So everything that came before you is
so-called linear time.
Yeah. So it's all a projection. It's all an expectation and a judgment. It's not real. It's a, we can call it a phantom reality or a virtual vibrational reality or whatever we want to call it. But it's not real because it's what was the probabilities, not the possibilities. And once you become fully conscious, you become what's possible, which is infinity. So we don't.
By the way, the interesting thing about that too, Tim, is that if that premise is correct, which there are a number of, you as well as a number of other people, would submit that it is. That is one more piece of evidence, one more strong piece of evidence that time is an illusion, because some of these, thoughts and feelings and archetypes and all of these things could be coming from people that lived in linear time 5 or 6 or 7,000 years ago.
Yes.
And you're experiencing them instantaneously on the so-called now moment, which means that your now is their past, which then makes it even more, irrelevant, if you would, in the notion of linear time. But anyway, just wanted to point that out.
Yes. So that's basically why you want to become good at lucid dreaming and astral projection. Because in your waking state, if you become fully conscious, which you'll get glimpses of the more you do the lucid dream state, because what it does is it wakens you up to the three-dimensional reality that we live in, which is the three folds of reality, which they call the threefold earth we live on, or the threefold. Anyway, that's getting a deep Buddhist thing that would take hours to discuss. But Buddhism basically said all this stuff 2,000 or 3,000 years ago, if time exists. But it is now being proved by science as not some hokey mystical stuff. It's just what we get if we become conscious, and that's really my goal of everything I do. All my music since I've been writing since I was 10 years old, and I wrote over 60 songs, is to help people become conscious. And I didn't even know the half the shit I was writing about back then because there wasn't books about these kind of things. And then 10 years after I write a song, I read a book, and I'm like, that's what I wrote the song about. And I couldn't really explain, what was I channeling? Well, according to the Rolling Stones singer, yes, he channeled all of his songs. And some people believe that the guy who was the actor in the Shakespeare plays, who was called Shakespeare, William Shakespeare, actually wrote the plays that he was starring in, which he was illiterate, and he never wrote a letter to anyone, and he never received a letter from anyone in his life, and he never even signed his name to anything except his will and his and one other lawsuit that he did. So and all of his plays were published 7 years after he died, which he didn't even know about, and they weren't even titled in his name. They were titled in a mythological character called, which was who shook spears, and that's why they called it Shakespeare with a hyphen. Not his name was Shakespeare. Anyway, so channeling is just becoming conscious of all the other people's thoughts, feelings, and emotions throughout time, which time doesn't exist. So you can channel. That's why my next book is called Channeling Sir Francis Bacon, which I believe is the true author of the Shakespeare plays, which a lot of people do believe, because he's the only one who was able to write such things, because the guy Shakespeare, William, had nothing remotely worth education in his life, and he barely spoke English well. And he also never wrote a letter, and he never... Can you imagine the greatest playwright in all of history never receiving a letter or writing a letter to anyone in history? That's kind of either he was a man who fell to earth, or he was a fictitious character.
Right. The other thing interesting about all of Shakespeare's plays, and I mean every single one of them, I don't know about the sonnets, but every single one of them is a variation of a Greek play.
Yes.
From before.
And he didn't speak Greek.
I mean, they changed characters, they added a few things here and there, but the Greek tragedies and the Greek comedies and so forth are paralleled in Shakespeare. So I'm not saying they're not witty and they're not wonderful and they're not clever, as Bacon certainly is, but you talk about Ecclesiastes, where there's nothing new under the sun that makes you, gives you pause for that,
Yeah.
to think about, and it kind of punctuates your point earlier about these thoughts already existed, and a lot of people are channeling in on them. And by the way, we're coming up on another break, and I said earlier that I was going to take this break a few minutes ago so I could play that 29-minute segment, but I thought it'd be more appropriate because that would have almost run us right up to the end of the show.
Okay.
So we're gonna take that shortest file, and we're gonna play roughly about 15 minutes of it, and then you and I can comment on that, and then we'll kind of wrap up the show.
Cool.
At the end of that, and then also give the audience different ways to do this. And by the way, folks, we're going to play all these files on Gemjin at 3 p.m. This week, all three of them, so including what you're going to hear here as well. But we're going to play a portion of the shorter one, and then Tim and I are going to comment on that, and then wrap this up. But right now, folks, we're ready actually to take our last commercial break, and we're going to run the show right up until 8:30, and we will be right back after about 2 minutes commercial break. Please stay by. Are we clear?
You threw me off, Joe. I was expecting to play that file now.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, no, I'm sorry.
No. Yeah, no, I that's what I said to you is I'll cue you to play it. But I thought we were going to do the commercials first. Okay, so we're not going to have any commercials?
I'm playing as
Okay. Yeah, I'll come back whenever you're ready with the commercials, and then I'll introduce this. And Tim, what is the name of this, and what is the flavor of this particular file?
Okay, it's like a meditation. I don't want to call it a meditation because a meditation is a definition, and all definitions are limitations. So it's like a meditation. It's like a hypnosis, but it's not hypnosis because it's not defined by this reality yet. But it's a thing that'll take you into a deep state where you could leave your body if you are willing to leave your body, and it might take a while. But I have 4 audios to get people deeper into it, because the first one, the first time they get into it might not.
Okay.
Okay.
I got it. Okay. Just cue me, Lucy, when we're live. And so, folks, we're back, and this again is your host, Dr. Joe Donlin, and we're here with Tim Janakos, and this is our final segment of the show tonight. We went right up until And again, I'm Eastern Daylight Savings Time here, and we're going to run it right up until 8:30 p.m. And we're going to play a portion of a file that you're going to be able to listen to, and we're going to play all three of these larger files, this one here and two other larger ones at 3 p.m. This week, so you'll be able to tune into them. But we're going to give you a little bit of a preview of this, and it's almost defies explanation. It's a bit of a meditation. It's a bit of almost like a hypnosis and so forth. But we've been talking about, in generality, within lucid dreaming and different ways to kind of enter into another dimension, if you would. And this is actually going to be a little bit of the instructions. So you can listen to this. Tim and I will comment on this before we end the show tonight, as well as giving you ways to, hear this again and get on Tim's website as well. But we want to give you a flavor of what this is, and the other two as well. So I think if the studio is ready to cue that up, why don't we cue that up and then maybe do about 15 minutes of that, and then you and I will talk about it, if that makes sense.
Great. Everyone just relax when you listen to it and lay back if you can.
This is your time to experience an unlimited existence, free from the
Can you hear it,
space
Joe?
and time
Yes.
constraints of your physical body, and free from all social constructs of space and time. Don't worry, throughout this journey, I, your host, Tim Janakos, from Time Without Beginning, make sure we bring you back to this, your comfortable reality, in about 40 minutes, and I will stay with you the whole way and bring you back hand in hand. Don't worry also, if you fall asleep or think you're drifting off during this journey, just let whatever happens on this journey happen, and let go of any need to judge it or worry about how you react or don't react to it. Just let it be. Be with you, and we can't be separated or disconnected from the co-creating of this moment together by any means. We ask, if possible, that you enjoy this journey in a safe, comfortable place. It's best to listen to this audio in headphones to block out all distracting background noises, so you can go deep into your highest consciousness, your true being, free from your physical body, and just continue at your own pace during this in and out, down and out breathing. If you like to visualize, you can visualize what I'm saying. And you can visualize the energy washing through your body in any color. But if you are like me and not a visual person, just embody the person without the need to see it visually. Just right where you are right. Just have faith that the way you are learning
I'm getting a lot of feedback on this, Joe. The audio quality is not all that
a
great.
better way to do it.
Yeah. And maybe I'm going to need a break in.
Just fade it out and then
Okay.
give me a second.
Yeah, folks, we are having some difficulty getting that audio to play clearly here, where we're broadcasting it here on Skype. So we're going to stop that earlier, but you can listen to this, and we're going to give you the websites. First of all, we'll play this again on Gemjin as soon as we can figure out a way to get the audio clear without some of the I am hearing background hits. But we're going to also give you the websites on that. But Tim, given the fact that we get a lot of feedback from our listeners that wasn't very clear, and I appreciate, by the way, the feedback. Always, obviously, the show was for you folks, and so glad that you quickly respond. So Tim, maybe you can kind of explain what the purpose of that is and how you're going about it. Obviously trying to get into a relaxation mode to enter this, but in your own words, what is it that you wanted to convey in that segment?
Okay, so it was like a meditation. So the good thing is I have all 3 of the audios also for a very short time on my YouTube video channel, which is youtube.com/Tim Janakos, Tim Janakos, TIMJANAKOS. But each one of those will take you deeper into. So some people can go lucid on the first one. Some people can go lucid after listening to the first 2, and some people can't until the 3rd one. And some people after listening to all 3 can't even do it. But the thing is, what will happen for a lot of people is you listen to one of them and you go to sleep, you'll be more likely in your dream state to realize there's something wrong and it's not a real waking reality. So that's how you become conscious in your dream. Also, in the book, The Phase by the School of Out of Body Experience, or OB, Out of Body Experience, yes, School of Out of Body Experience. They teach how to go into the phase state at the point when you wake up, which I'm not really good at. They call that indirect technique of entering the phase state, which if you wake up and a lot of people wake up and they feel like they're trapped, or they feel like someone's sitting on their chest, which science calls, sleep paralysis.
Mm-hmm.
In other mystical traditions, they call it all the hag, something sitting on your chest, some lady. A lot of people in that state think they're getting abducted by aliens, and they might well be, but most of them aren't. Also, in that state, many people think they're talking to gods, which is most of all the revelations in the Bible, or in different traditions of religion, is in the phase state consciousness, according to the School of Out of Body Experience. But whether that's true or not, I'm not going to make a judgment, because all judgments are limitations, and all beliefs are limitations. So, as an infinite being and an unlimited being, I want to be free to accept any alternate view of reality that is presented to me, if it's worth buying or worth playing with for a while. So in these meditations, if you want to call them that, I don't like to call them that only because it brings to mind all the limitations of meditations. And if you've ever done a meditation and you said, I'm not good at meditations, then you're going to think you're not going to be good at this. Or if you've done hypnosis and you say, oh, I can't be hypnotized, then you think you're not going to be good at this. So it's neither hypnosis, neither in the Buddhist sutras, there's something called the 32 negations, which is how the Buddha describes who he is. He says, I'm neither here, neither there, I'm neither coming, I'm neither going, I'm neither tall, I'm neither short, I'm neither round, I'm neither square. He goes through every possibility of what physical reality could be, or a conscious reality could be, if time were true, because he says, I'm neither here or there, I'm neither, And by negating everything, he finally comes to the truth, which is, I am that I am, which is in the Bible, but in Buddhism it's more like I be that I be. Because it's being, or being conscious, is what you truly. So what is the guy? I think, therefore I am. Thinking is.
That was Descartes.
Yeah, Descartes. Thinking is actually not even consciousness. Most of your thoughts, feelings, and emotions are projections and expectations and judgments that you're picking up from people around you. That's why your head's on top of your body. It's like a big cell phone tower. It's picking up all the information around you. So if you're walking down the street and all of a sudden think, I'm hungry for Mexican food, you might become aware that there's probably about 50 people around you that are thinking about Mexican food, and that's why you're thinking of Mexican food at that time. Or there might be a Mexican restaurant by, and you're perceiving that there's a Mexican restaurant. That's why you become all of a sudden hungry for Mexican food. So the meditations will allow you to let go of that mind, but I don't want to call them meditations, because a lot of it it's program thinking. And one of the other guys that I wanted to talk about, he wrote many books. One of them is The Crack in the Cosmic Egg. You're probably familiar with the book.
Very familiar. In fact, I know the author.
Yeah.
And we're actually, it's a great, Chilton Pierce.
Chilton Pierce, yeah. Joseph Chilton Pierce.
and we've exchanged many emails
Cool.
and talked about our latest books. Yeah, I know,
Cool.
It's wonderful.
So Joseph Shilton Pearce says that the enemy to biological evolution is culture. And culture
You
is...
get into the whole thing about the culturation.
Yeah. So culture is all the expectations, judgments, conclusions, projections, computations, linearities, concentricities, form structures, significances, of everyone's thoughts and emotions through all times in the place you live, so that it's controlling you into causal reality, which doesn't really exist if you step out of
Yeah.
causal reality.
He and I have actually talked about this very topic together, and we call it metaprogramming. And
Yeah.
I have passed on to him, which I think he agrees with, that it is a vibration, it is the collective vibration of society which tries to resonate, if you would, all of its constituents into the same vibration, if you will, to act the same way, because otherwise you're going to have a cacophony and society will fall apart. But unfortunately, that's good for society, but what's good for society is not good for independent thinking, because it actually metaprograms people into this kind of quasi, stupor, if you would, and you follow the crowd.
Yeah.
And it prevents individual thinking, but interesting.
So what happened with that guy in my lucid dream when I finally just started to stop having sex with everyone and tried to learn in my lucid dream, when he threw his head off, is basically what I've learned is the cognitive mind. If you can shut off the cognitive mind, you can actually become fully conscious, because the cognitive mind, every time you think, oh, I hate this guy, you might go, wait, do I really hate that guy, or does that guy hate himself? And a lot of times, if someone hates their self, you'll think you hate them because you're picking up their consciousness. You're picking up their thoughts. So it has nothing to do with you, a lot of the prejudices that you have, or it might be just the projections of all the people around you. So if you're born in a society that thinks they hate certain people based on their color, you might think you hate them because of their color, but you don't really hate them because of your color, but you're picking up the projections and thoughts of the other people. So once you learn to get rid of those, which is what these 3 audios do, then you can actually have your own reality, because your own reality is your points of view create your reality, or in Buddhism we say your karma, which is action, which is, there's 3 parts of action. There's thoughts, words, and deeds. Create your reality. Creates your what you see around you. So if you can be free to choose your own thoughts and your own projections and your own expectations, it can be so much better than anyone else's, because everyone else is based on their limitations of what happened before. And everything that happened before is culture, is an enemy to biological evolution, because it's keeping us from moving forward, which is what the goal of all culture is to keep things set in one reality. And that's the same thing with all causal reality. It's based on algorithms, which algorithms can only predict what happened in the past. They can't predict the possibilities of the future.
Absolutely.
So,
And you're right, and the future is nothing more than probabilities, and the probabilities themselves are very much influenced by your own attitude about what, and expectations about what that is going to be.
yeah, but the difference between probabilities and possibilities is probabilities are based on the algorithms, or the what has happened. So if the Beatles were told when they were coming out that there's never been a band in England that would go all around the world and have people screaming and throwing bras at them and doing this because it's never happened, and they believed that, which is another whole other subject we would have to talk about on another call, is did the Beatles really believe that, or was that a program they put out there, which is more of the truth. So they actually created the psychological programming in the first time they landed in JFK, I think it was. They hired a group of college dorms girls, and they paid them all to show up and scream, and that's the projected reality that everyone thought was real. And the same thing happened with David Bowie. When he came to the U.S., they pretended like he was a movie star, and they put him in the top hotels, and they booked him at the top theaters, but he was really an unknown artist. but they created the projected reality that he was a superstar and he became a superstar. And the same thing they did with the Beatles. And it was part of the MI3 and the whole British government trying to use the British invasion as a way to bring back the one arm of the Illuminati, which was lower than the higher arm of the Illuminati, which is in America now. But anyway, that's a whole other story. So
Well, I do remember actually when the Beatles ended up on the Ed Sullivan Show. I think I watched that as a kid, and I mean, you know, we knew of the Beatles by that time. They were a sensation in England. They just hadn't yet come to the United States. So that was interesting.
Well, actually, the sensation that they were in England was actually a fabrication too. So they took photos of people, and they took only the ones where they showed like it looked like there was a large crowd and screaming people, and they made that what was on the news so that they can boost them up, because they got hired by EMI, which EMI is, if you listen to the Sex Pistols, Unlimited Supply, EMI, it's just like Warner Brothers in the U.S. It's part of the shadow government, which controls people's thinking. So they used it to, although I love the Beatles and I love what they finally broke out of that system. That's why they broke the band up and went their own ways, because they realized they were being manipulated, and they used the last few albums to get away from the manipulation that they were under. But anyway, it's what the MI6 knew, and what the other shadow governments know, is that they can project reality the way they want it, and people will react to it and create that reality. So that's how you actually create reality that's never been created before.
Yeah, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yes. So if we all believe...
I had never heard that about the Beatles. I thought that they were wildly popular in England, but as you said, it's a possibility that that was all staged.
That was mostly staged. And so they brought them to the U.S., and they hired a group of... teenage girls to show up at JFK Airport, and you can't get into the by the airplane like that. That's even before TSA and all the other things, you couldn't get there. They hired a busload of girls to come off and show up at the airport and make a photo op and make a video so that they can say this is how famous they already are in the U.S. because they're so famous in the U.K., which everyone they staged in the U.K., they also hired groups of girls and other people to go crazy. And once they did that, it actually happened. So the Ed Sullivan Show, they didn't have to hire girls anymore, because everyone looks at TV and they say, that's reality. And if that's reality, we have to conform to that reality. And that's what psychological programming has been done in all cultures, and that's why he says cult is the first word of culture. This Joseph Shilton Pierce says the cult is what culture is. It's a cult. It's cult programming. And if they can project something to come and get enough people to believe it, it'll come. So whether they believe Armageddon's coming, it's going to come if enough people believe it, because that's how reality morphs into what we believe or we project onto it. Because we are transmorphic beings.
Yeah, I could not believe it. I could not agree with you more. And in fact, that's the reason we have many folks that are trying to have meditation for peace.
Yeah.
If we have enough of that, then we're going to go in the right direction. But you're absolutely right. People
Definitely.
that believe in this. You know, the other interesting thing about that, too, is that when you have search engines such as, say, Google, they can influence people so strongly, because let's just say, for example, there's a flu going on. Let's just say it's wintertime and people, are starting to get sniffles, whatever, and they start getting on the internet and checking into what do you do about this type of sniffle, whatever. And now within Google, they're going to see that, and they're going to have more information than the Center for Disease Control about that, and they could start to influence the severity of the flu that particular season by what they do. By having people now start to advertise, you're going to be getting this sniffle, if you get this, take this, and so forth and so on, and actually amplify, because it becomes a psychosomatic thing on people. Every time they sneeze, they think, oh, I have the flu. And,
Yes.
and they're going crazy because their mind begins to think this. It's the opposite of the placebo effect. Actually, it is a variation of the placebo effect.
Yes.
And it happens. It's very frightening. It is very frightening. And important thing, I think, on this particular show, we can't necessarily eliminate these things because that's part of society. And in fact, it isn't just part of society, it is the fabric of society that keeps society working the way society wants to work. And I understand that. And I guess if you treat society as an organism, I can appreciate that. Just as a plant wants to aggrandize its own existence and certainly prevail and get by, through times of drought and so forth and so on. But the truth of the matter is we're individual parts, we're individual people within the society, and we should be aware of this. I'm not trying to get into conspiracy theories or whatever, but we should be aware of this meta program that's going on. In fact, it's exactly what Joe talks about. Joseph Chilton Pierce talks about, and I love the way he writes about that because he gets into that so much. And by the way, folks, The Crack in the Cosmic Egg is a wonderful book on that, and so is some of his later
Magical
books
Child.
that I've referenced within my books.
Yeah, Magical Child too.
Yes, yeah, and he just he understands these things that he can step outside, and again, it's just important to be cognizant of that, so that you still have your individualism. You don't stand out. You're not here trying to create a revolution. But at the same time, you have to understand that these things are going on, and that they are influencing you just the same way you walk into a blue room or a red room or a purple room. It has an influence on your mood. This is the same way that things are working. It becomes a vibration, and it's an entraining vibration that gets everybody kind of on the same page, so that there's not anarchy within a civilization. All well and good for the success and procreation, if you would, of the civilization, but not necessarily for the individuality of the person. So you have to kind of keep that in balance, and I think that's very much, Tim, what you've been saying.
Yeah, but the good thing is the people who become fully conscious or more conscious, they actually, like water that's vibrating at a higher frequency, the other water around it will start vibrating to the highest frequency. It won't go down to the lowest common denominator. So it'll actually, as you become more conscious and you become, which is what these audios do, you actually start influencing all the people around you in their thinking, because your thoughts get projected more powerfully the more conscious you are. So all your thoughts, projections, expectations, judgments, conclusions, which are more powerful than theirs, become, I'm sure you've talked a million times, the 100th monkey. When 100 people become fully conscious in an area, everyone instantly becomes fully conscious, whether they wanted to or not. They can be the most conservative person in the world, and all of a sudden they're thinking like, oh, slavery's bad now. And just because 100 people thought slavery was bad around them, all of a sudden they thought it was bad.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the coolest thing about becoming conscious, is once you realize that this waking state is a sleepwalking state, and you can become awake, which means a Buddha, and you could, with your awakened state, fully project your consciousness on other people and waken them up, and they start becoming more conscious beings and more free thinking and more, more aware. They start being nicer people, they start being more compassionate and stuff, and you don't have to do anything, just be there. So I can walk into a room, and the more conscious I am, the whole room will light up with people's thinking like, oh, why am I feeling good today?
Yeah. And Buddha realized that and recognized that as that so many of us are just going through life kind of in a sleepwalking, as you mentioned, and really, literally the awakened one, Buddha. And your point about more powerful vibrations overriding it, that's just a fact of nature. A more powerful vibration always entrains a weaker vibration. So that's why powerful people, when they go in there, they actually have a vibration that people kind of get on board with them. So all of us out there, folks, have the ability to kind of transcend a lot of the negatives that are going on. I talk about this in my books, and Tim talks about it in his books as well as on his website. Now, we're out of time, Tim, but I want folks to be able to find you on the website. And by the way, folks, we're going to be playing as soon as we clean up the audio, but I can also you can do this on YouTube. All of these files, all 3 of them. So I strongly suggest you get into this meditation because that will help you through that. And Tim, what's the best way that folks can find you, your books, and these particular meditations on the web?
Okay, TJ, which is my name, Tim Janakos, tjmusic.org, as in orgasmic, because I am orgasmic. The more conscious you become, the more you become algorithm interrupt, which is an orgasmic energy that creates reality instead of becomes a victim of reality.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what the real meaning of orgasm is. It's the creation of the energy of creation of life.
Excellent. So it's tjmusic.org.
Org, yeah, O-R-G.
Yeah. Yep. Okay. And so that would be the best place for folks to find more about
Yes.
your song, and your books.
Yes, everything.
Okay. Everything.
My radio show, my YouTube page, my many things.
Yeah, and here on Gemjin as well, we'll be playing other clips from Tim, as we have already. Tim was already on the show a few months ago, and will be on the show again, because he's always coming up with new stuff, and we want to review a lot of the things that we've talked about. And by the way, didn't even get into a lot of the topics that we could have, so we'll save some of those for the next time. Tim, thank you so much again for being on the show. It's probably 9:33.
So I'm going to project into the infinite future, actually the real recent future. We're going to actually be talking in a huge lecture hall at some university, and it's going to be like a 3 or 4 hour lecture with a lunch break in between. So that's probably going to happen real soon.
Oh, that's excellent. I look forward to that.
Good.
My corporal
And Lucy's going to make it all possible.
Plane of existence, I'll give you a nod and said, well, then here we are, and that's what you saw. Excellent. Well, folks, that's it for tonight. It's a wrap. And thank you so much for listening. And again, get to tjmusic.org to find out more about Tim. And then also here on Gemjin Radio, we're going to be playing this whole segment again, as well as all of those files that we had decided to play part of tonight. And that is a wrap for tonight. And so obviously listen to our shows here on Gemjin Radio, and of course please tune in again at 7 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time for next Tuesday for another edition of Ordain Your Reality. And that's it for tonight, and have a wonderful week, and God bless. And thank you, Tim.
Thank you.